Is there a person in the country who couldn't sing along to every word of Vincent and American Pie and a dozen more Don McLean songs? If there is, I haven't met them. He's an incredible songwriter, incredible singer, and he's had a career that has spanned more than 5 decades. And at 77, he's still going very strong. I was having a look at his tour list earlier, and he's got such a full-on series of dates between now and next May that somebody half of his age would be exhausted, quite frankly. I caught up with the American Troubadour at the end of last year. It was just before he came to play here, and he started off by telling me how much he loved playing over here, somewhere he's been performing since 1974, when the late Jim Aiken, music promoter, first brought him over here to perform.
Oh Mary, this London's a wonderful sight down to the sea.
Jim Aiken, the promoter in Northern Ireland, who's very famous, brought me there as part of the first trip over I ever did. And I would go every time I went to England or went to Ireland. I always played Belfast. And then later on, I ended up going around under armed guard, a bunch of smaller places. You know, I've enjoyed doing that.
And I'm sure the one thing that you find with our audiences here, no matter how big or small, no matter whether it be in the city or in the back end of nowhere, that we're a loud audience. We like to sing along.
Yes, and I would always, encourage you to do that, and they would do it. And I made an album. One of the 6th record I made for United Artists was called Solo, and it was supposedly at Albert Hall, but a lot of it was in Ireland because the audiences were very, very receptive and really liked to sing.
Oh, it's good to know we can beat their Albert Hall whenever it comes to having a worthy audience for you. The strange thing for me to get my head around is that we wouldn't have got to hear your voice, your incredible voice, if your father had had his way. I know you lost him at a tragically young age. I've been reading about how he wasn't so keen on your choice of career.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I know a lot of people in Nashville who've made a good living as musicians in the studio. And in every case, the mother, the father, or whatever always supported them, got them the first drums or got them their guitar or took them to lessons and did these things. There was absolutely no support for what I was doing. It was like, you're throwing your life away. This is not a proper thing for someone to do. And it was a mysterious business. But as I got older, a couple of things really worked together. One was that I loved my freedom. And I wasn't really very good at dealing with authority. So this was a way for me. After my father died, I decided I really want to do this because this was a way for me to be my own boss, do what I wanted to do or not what I wanted to do. I could just choose to do it. And in my entire life, I've done what I wanted. It was the right thing to do. I had to do it, and I also spent a lot of time in the country. We had woods near where I lived, and then I immediately moved upstate New York and not into New York City. That also suited me. It was freedom, and I like that.
Of a man was he, Don? Do you think now if he were still with you, would he be the kind of man who would say, do you know what, son, you were 100% correct and I was wrong?
My father would never do that. He would have probably stopped talking to me. That's the kind of guy he was. He would just clam up, I never assumed that anything I ever did would have impressed him because I didn't have a regular job. He was old-fashioned, like a lot of guys were. Supposedly Clark Gable's father was the same thing, and he was a big movie star, and you say, well, you don't have a real job.
It's crazy to get your head around, isn't it? I know you didn't get that support from your mum and dad, but it was your sister, wasn't it, who was the first person to step you along, maybe that more professional singing route. I know she booked lessons for you with a former opera singer.
My mother supported what I did. She liked the idea. She didn't care if I wanted to be a musician. She didn't have that phony status thing that my father had. And my sister took pleasure in finding me an opera teacher to go to when I was about 12. to begin the process of learning about. So I learned a lot in 6 months from this opera teacher about how you could build the voice. I didn't know anything, I was just a kid. And she explained how you supported the tone and how you built the tone of your voice and how this muscle was something that you developed. And you learned some different exercises. And like when Judy Collins and I work together, we'll talk about vocalizing and the voice and so on. So that was an eye-opener for me.
Don't you love farce? My they're here.
An eye-opener for me is I have asthma, and I was interested to read that you had severe asthma as a child as well. And, even as an adult, I couldn't hold a note for more than a second or two before my lungs kind of run out of air. And I wondered if it was doing this kind of courses that opened your lungs, gave you that ability to have those really long, beautifully clear, crystal clear notes.
Well, there was the singing, which required deep breathing, and swimming. I was on a swimming team at a club we belonged to, and I was on that for about 6 years. And I would do get through the workouts, which would be 3 or 4 times a week, and they were grueling, really hard. And the coach that we had was the coach of West Point, and before that he'd been the coach of the University of Florida. And those kids are all, Olympic winners. He really worked us out. And this was a team that won a lot of trophies in Westchester County. So that was a big thing. And I think my father joined that club just for me to do that, so that I would get away from this damned sickness that had kept me home all the time.
Well, I'm delighted your dad did, because I can't wait to hear you exercise those gorgeous lungs. I just want to say thank you so much for having a chat with me today. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, very good.
A long, long time ago, I can still I died.
Don McLean, absolutely fascinating man to have a chat with. Absolutely delighted to have that chance, that opportunity to hear more about him. And he was incredibly open and very honest about everything. In fact, he was so open and honest that I had to cut out a few bits whenever he was talking about other people. So I thought, no, we'll just skip by that. But really nice to have that chat with him.